What's up, indie pop faithful? It is your dynamic duo, Damian G, as well as heel Trina herself, the Marky Smart. What up, Trina?
Hi, guys.
It's good to have the team back. Good to have you
Yeah,
back.
I know. Seriously.
Have you recovered from all of your travels?
No, not really. Because I still have like another 2 more weeks of it, maybe, possibly. And then,
Mhm.
I have an actual personal vacation and then back to wrestling. So, it never ends. So there's maybe 2 days during the week where I'm like, oh, like I feel not that exhausted, and then it starts again. So it's a good time.
Oh yeah, definitely a good time to be exhausted in the
Yeah.
world of independent wrestling because I still haven't recovered from our trips that weekend. My sleep pattern is still bonked.
Hmm. Right, right.
I'm a walking zombie half the time. Like I don't wake up physically until like later in the afternoon now because of Chicago and St. Louis. And
Right.
I
Yeah.
still don't know how people like Kurt Stallion can drive for 15 hours,
Hmm.
to do a show to drive 20 hours back.
Right. Exactly.
You, and you understand it because you've driven 8 hours to a show.
Yeah.
Man,
Well,
listen, you cannot pay me enough to do that. I'm sorry.
right. And I feel like a week or two ago, I did a crazy drive, and I just remember doing so many things on Monday, but not remembering I did them on Tuesday.
Hmm.
So, like, it was just so weird. It was like a blackout, but I'm like, no, I was at work. I like returned my rental car. I did all these important things. It was the Monday after Glory Pro. So the Monday after I saw you, pretty much. I went about life apparently, but I don't remember any of it. So that's the zombie part I can totally relate to.
So I'm going to let the listeners in on a little secret. After Glory Pro, when we all went our separate ways, I went to a local establishment about maybe 2 blocks from my hotel,
Hmm.
and I met a couple of wrestling fans there who were at Glory Pro,
Oh, cool.
and they were like, "Oh my God, Damien, yeah!" And this is just me and you came back from where we were eating with the rest of the group,
Hmm.
and I didn't want to drink anymore,
Mm.
and it was like free food because they think I'm some sort of celebrity for some stupid reason. But I got free food and free booze out of it. But here's the funny part. I don't know if you've ever done this, so I'm going to
Yeah.
pose the question to the New Age Insiders audience. Have you ever had a night of drinking where you didn't get drunk that night, but you still woke up with a hangover?
I think so. I think that's totally possible.
Because that's what happened. I was not drunk. I was fully coherent. I walked back to the hotel, had normal conversation with people, and it's not one of those like you think you're sober, but you're
Hmm.
not. I legitimately was sober because I had a conversation with someone when I got back to the room, like an hour long phone conversation.
Right.
So I was fine, and then I got 4 hours of sleep, and I was hungover for the
Right.
whole day, and I didn't understand that. I said, wait a minute. I usually have this process and I wonder what independent wrestlers do when they're out on the town to get over, a heavy night of drinking.
Yeah.
But I usually take an ibuprofen,
Hmm.
I drink a gallon of water, or at least a half gallon,
Hmm.
and I wind up eating crackers before I go to bed after a night of heavy drinking. And
Okay.
90% of the time, no hangover,
Okay.
except this one.
Well, I mean, I've talked about this before. I mean, like there's such thing as a wrestling high. Like
Or exhaustion.
exhaustion or whatever. I mean, because like your adrenaline is going so much, and there was so much going on that weekend. I can totally believe that you had that feeling.
Yeah.
Um, because a hangover essentially is just you being dehydrated
Yes.
from all the alcohol. So I can imagine how our weekend, which was filled with driving and wrestling and all sorts of stuff, probably exhausted you to the point where it probably mimicked a bit of dehydration. So
That's
I'm not
90%.
surprised.
And I'm not advocating going out and getting sloshed here, people, but that's what happened to me. So I can only imagine what wrestlers go through when they go
Mm,
from town to town and engage in some tomfoolery, as they like to call it. But
mm,
I want to focus back on the present. And before we jumped on air, you brought up something interesting about how there's like a small lull in independent
mm,
wrestling right now. Would you like to
mm.
expound upon that?
Yeah. There are a couple shows coming up here, but if you follow wrestling Twitter or wrestling internet, a lot of the buzz is still. Well, look, we're about 25 minutes here from SmackDown. The buzz is still Jinder Mahal. The buzz is still Pete Dunne versus Tyler Bate, and Pete Dunne is the new champion, the UK champion. Ciampa and Gargano breaking up, so everybody's still they still have a backlash hangover from the weekend, because there was just so much going on in Chicago this weekend that the talk is still WWE.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not seeing too much. There's a couple shows going on this weekend. I know Glory Pro obviously is doing their show on Friday. Sami Callihan is doing a PW Revolver show in Iowa on Saturday. There's a show down in Austin. Our friend Kenway is going to be wrestling. So, there's a ton of stuff going on the holiday weekend, but nobody's really talking about it. A lot of people, there was an announcement today about the Ring of Honor shows that are going on next week. So the typical talk in independent wrestling is usually what's the big show of the weekend, what's the big matchup, what are the things we're looking forward to, and a lot of that stuff isn't coming up. I mean, maybe it's just Tuesday, maybe it'll heat up towards the end of the week, but it just feels like there's a bit of a lull right now in independent wrestling. I mean, personally for me, part of it is because one of my friends, Dave Christ, is out. So, I mean, that's why I'm really not like that excited about some shows, until he comes back. So I don't know, maybe this is finally the hangover from all the wrestling that we've been doing leading up to WrestleMania and then afterwards.
It's exhausting.
It is. It's super exhausting.
And I had a conversation with someone who listens to NAI, and I'm like I told you last week in our Last Mark Standing Patreon episode, is the same thing I told him. I said, look, after this weekend coming up, I'm going on a 2-month hiatus. I will not be attending shows. I can't, just for the simple fact that I'm beat, man. Like, and I don't want to sound like a quitter, but when you go from show to show, and Trin, you know this, when you have a full-time job and then you go to job number 2, in my case, job number 2 is broadcasting, and then you do job number 3, which is covering this stuff, which is job number 3, it gets a little dilapidating for your psyche. And me personally, I just have no oomph whatsoever after this weekend. And this weekend, I get to end it on the most idiotic note. House of Glory is having I want to say their Memorial Weekend show. And they got Bobby Fish coming. They have Kyle O'Reilly. We have the rematch of Leo Rush and Ken Broadway. But what really makes me sad, Trina, and you saw this on Twitter, and you can follow us at Dare to be Damon and the Marquis Mark. Cody Rhodes, my nemesis, for all the New Age Insider listeners, going up against my least favorite.
Your other nemesis.
My least favorite independent wrestler. My other nemesis, Anthony Gango, for the House of Glory Heavyweight Championship of the World. Now, if you listened to a couple of weeks ago, I made the mention that I may not be going to any more House of Glory shows. So I feel like this is like the wrestling karma gods messing with me and saying, oh, yeah, you want to take a break? Cool. We're going to send you out on this one.
Yeah.
So you're going to be miserable. And you're going to like it.
This is your last show. This is the one that you're going to remember for a while. Seriously.
And I'm just thinking, why me? But yes, folks, I will be taking a break.
Right. And it, it almost seems indicative of what we're talking about. There is a lull, like if that's the House of Glory main event, that kind of sucks, and it's weird because like we talked about a lot of the stuff that went on during Mania week and even before that, when I looked at the schedule, I was like, are we afraid we're going to like blow our wad here? Like if you do all the dream matches the week of Mania, what's going to be left? And I kind of feel like that's where we are at this point. Everything's just kind of like bleh. I think I mentioned to you off air that Will Ospreay, who obviously he and Ricochet just had an awesome match at the Super Juniors tournament, tweeted that he wanted to wrestle Joey Ryan, which I feel like on any normal day in wrestling land, that's a big deal. somebody would have booked that 5 minutes after it was tweeted. And he tweets it, and 12 hours later, Joey Ryan follows up and he's like, hey, this tweet has been up for 12, 14 hours, and yet nobody's booked it yet. So I feel like, again, that's also indicative of what's going on right now. Like, I don't know if there's just an apathy, people are exhausted or whatever, or we blew our wad during WrestleMania week, but you know, there isn't too much to be excited about right now in the world of indie wrestling.
There really isn't. And
someone's gonna send us mail and say that's not true and blah blah blah. But I mean, we keep our fingers on the pulse of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it just, you know, it just kind of feels like bleh. And really, I have to believe that you just have to look at that Ospreay Joey Ryan tweet and be like, okay, what is going on? Because I, you know, immediately some people were like, oh, how is he going to counter the dick flip and all this different stuff? But yeah, I mean, I didn't even see that tweet. None of that stuff went across my timeline.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. I don't know how the algorithm works with Twitter, but you know, there are every once in a while, like, stuff passes me by, which is hard to believe because I'm on Twitter like almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I didn't even see that. So,
well,
yeah.
if people do know of events, you can always tweet us. But here's I'm going to suggest an alternative.
Okay.
In me keeping with my vow to not go, because right now I just as we're recording this got a text if I'm going to Evolve at the end of June at La Boom. And I'm looking at the seats, and there are stage seats available, and I'm trying to like not push the button. So I'm like, no. But I'm gonna die. I'm gonna try to be a better person and not get the ticket. Anywho, I suggested to Bill from New Age Insiders about changing the format a bit, and we've done this before, where I've taken a before they were stars look at wrestlers. I've chronicled Shinsuke. I've chronicled Claudio Castagnoli and Brody Lee, otherwise known as Luke Harper and Cesaro, and they like it. So they like the thought of me chronicling people early in their independent wrestling career. I did one for Finn Balor a while ago. So that is what I'm going to do from my contribution to this show. I'm going to watch a match, break it down, you know, and just talk about how they've changed or if any observations I've had. But that's what I'm going to do for the New Age Insiders audience. That's what I'm going to do to contribute.
Right.
So that's my 2 cents. I know you're more the promoter type.
Yeah,
like, I'm sure you have a bigger pulse base than I do out here because you know everybody and their mama.
Yeah.
So you'll know before I know, and then by proxy, I'll know because you know.
Right. Exactly. Well, it's interesting that you bring that up about going back into, you know, wrestlers' pasts and seeing how they got to where they were, because there's a picture that was making the rounds today of a young Neville and a young Pete Dunne, almost unrecognizable from a couple of years ago. I don't know how far, you know, like how far in the past it was, but they both look really, really young. So it's really interesting.
I was going to ask, is it because Neville looks like not as jacked as he is now?
I mean, they just look like kids, you know, and a lot of wrestlers who retweeted it were like, you know, this is what happens when you stay the course, like when you stay determined to fulfill your dreams and all this different stuff. I mean, they really do. They look unrecognizable. I mean, if you've seen Neville outside of the ring, you know, like he wears glasses and he's kind of nerdy. So it's already
God.
Yeah, it's pretty different.
Oh God.
Yeah, look how young they are.
It's on Reddit. Oh my God.
Isn't that crazy? The two of them?
Pete Dunne doesn't look anything like he does now, and Neville looks like he hasn't hit the performance center yet. So yes, that's crazy. Yeah,
it's super crazy. And so that's the thing. Like, I really like that idea of you profiling people before, you know, they've made it to the WWE or they became famous, because everyone started somewhere. I mean, my favorite before picture is the old pictures of Ricochet. Because
when you had the long hair.
Yeah, like just glasses, long hair, like, you know, just totally a different person than what you see now. You know, like it's really kind of fantastic to know that like people can really transform themselves and attain their dreams. And You know, I don't know. It's inspiring.
I mean, the both of us, if you look at old pictures of you and I, it's a
Yeah,
similar
that's
thing
true.
where
Right.
we're unrecognizable for the most part.
Yes, us too. Us too, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I like that idea. So I'm glad that you do that because, you know, when these people come up to NXT or whatever, then they start getting interested in their work in the indies and things like that. And so you might be, you know, doing a lot of homework for some people. You know,
That's true.
good example is Ruby Riott right now in NXT. People are falling in love with her character, and so they're going back into the archives and looking back when she was Heidi Lovelace. So, you know,
And her
I don't know.
style's not that much different from when
No,
she worked the indies than to now.
no, she's pretty much just, you know, a better version of herself. She was always the best, pretty much on the circuit. Like I talked about this earlier in other episodes that we miss her because, you know, there aren't that many great women anymore. A lot of them got called up, and so yeah, you know, like maybe you can introduce people to people before they get called up, so that by the time they get called up to NXT or whatever, they'll know who a Ken Broadway is or like a Leo Rush.
I honestly can't wait for him to get called somewhere. And I'm not saying HOG isn't big, but I want to see these guys be more global, if that makes sense, and just venture out of the Northeast, because I know they have a working arrangement with CZW. But I would love to see Ken Broadway. I would love to see our boy MJF like out in the Midwest, you know,
Right.
down in Lloyd Pro or Rev Pro or somewhere along those lines. You know?
Yeah, and he's working on it. I was actually just talking to him yesterday, and he's trying to get out here because he is an East Coast guy and from New York. He's trying to get out here in the Midwest, and so he was asking me about it. And you know, he trains with a lot of good people, and I told him, you know, I was like, work those connections. There are a lot of people out there. He wants to make, and he's gonna love that I bring this up on the show. He really, really wants to make a match with Ryback happen.
I've seen this online.
Yeah, he's absolutely serious about this. You know, like you guys see the tweets or whatever, or him like poking the bear, but he's absolutely serious about it. He really wants it to happen. And unfortunately, I told him, I was like, there's nothing I can do because Ryback blocked me many, many months ago after I made fun of him after one of his stupid, you know, car rants or whatever that he ended up deleting maybe like 20 minutes later. You know, I know a couple people who've booked him for shows, but he isn't necessarily like the easiest person to get a hold of. So anything you guys can do out there to help make this happen, MJF really wants to make that match happen. So poke the bear. I kind of feel like Ryback is totally the type of person that if you antagonized him enough, he would take the match.
Just to shut people up, right?
Kind of, yeah. But then it kind of freaks me out because he's also seems like the type of person who would like work stiff on purpose. I don't know.
I feel like he would probably injure somebody.
Right, exactly. And so I understand like MJF wants this to happen, but me knowing him as a person, I kind of don't want it to, you know, because I'm like, I don't want you to wrestle him. Like, he's a dangerous worker, you know, like you're a young kid. You're just peaking now. I don't want to see you get hurt because you wanted some stupid match with Ryback. I don't know. So
what it will do for his star power, you know what I mean? The fact that he's with Ryback in a ring.
Right.
So that'll get him some more pub. And let's be real here. MJF, we love him, but he's got a big head enough as it is. We don't really want to give him any more egotistical stroking here. Man.
Right. I mean, look, he's going to move mountains. He's going to make other things happen that are completely unbelievable. If this happens, you know, obviously we'll cheer for him, but I guess as a friend, I'm like, I don't really want that to happen secretly.
I know.
Secretly don't want it to happen.
Same with me. You know, I care about him, and he knows that. So it's just one of those situations where it goes back to when we were at AAW, and I was cheering Ethan Page, and you know, the fact that Page would tell me, Damian, stop cheering for me. like I can't help it. Like, I love what you do. I can't help it. But oh yeah, that reminds me. At CZW recently, didn't MJF capture the Wire Championship?
He is, yeah. And then Leo Rush also became the CZW champion. So things, they are a changing. That sounds really
Imagine
stupid.
that. CZW's evolving. Go figure.
It is. Well, and if you pay attention to CZW, some news broke actually a couple days ago also that Sami Callihan is taking over creative.
From who?
Whoever was doing the creative.
Okay, I thought we knew who it was. Okay.
No, he's just gotten more control over there.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see how that goes. Sami is a super creative guy, and whatever you guys have seen over the last year in terms of him evolving his character has come 100% from the brain of Sami Callihan. So with that in mind, who knows what direction CZW will go in, but yes, MJF is their new Wired champion, and Lio Rush is their new main event champion.
Right. And maybe that's a shot in a different direction now that CZW is trying to take, because if you remember correctly, anyone who's listened to the past episodes, you and I did not really enjoy ourselves at CZW when we went together.
Mm-hmm.
Was unique in a very old school ECW kind of way.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But I kind of felt that their deathmatch style, and I've had this conversation with Hokai before, just didn't suit me.
Right.
And now that they're maybe going more toward technical wrestling, maybe it'll get me down to Voorhees a little bit more often.
Right, exactly. I mean, if Lio Rush is your champion, that definitely makes a statement about what style of wrestling you're moving towards or you're starting to favor. Same thing with MJF. I mean, he's not neither of those guys are deathmatch guys. Both of their faces are too pretty to like smash with a light bulb. But for the people that are still like hardcore CZW deathmatch people, IWA is definitely going to fill that role very quickly if CZW steps out.
What are they doing?
They're literally doing a bunch of death matches. So, yeah, I mean, over the past weekend, there was some like horrible contraption that was made, which was like a bunch of light bulbs duct taped together. And I was just like, what is that? What is that horrific thing? And they're like, yeah, it's a common deathmatch thing. It's just you tape them together so that you get maximum pain and carnage when somebody falls on it. So they're definitely bringing back the deathmatch. Like if you're missing color, if you're missing weapons and death matches, IWA is definitely filling that role. And what's sad for me is that there's some new people, new faces over at IWA. Maybe not new, but new as in like the last 6 months. Specifically, Eddie Kingston is doing these death matches. And if you saw a bit of AAW 2 weeks ago, he's hurt right now.
Yep. I mentioned on our last week's show.
He's hurt. He's pretty much got the same thing that Dave has, just different vertebrae in his back. It's higher up on his neck. So he gets the same thing where it's tingling and numbness in his arms, pretty much everywhere right below where those bulging discs are. He is going to physical therapy, but unlike Dave, he's not taking time off. So he's doing the physical therapy, but then on the weekends still doing the death matches. So, it sucks. It really sucks. And I told him, I was just like, just be careful. Like I understand like you need to make money and whatever, and you need to keep your name out there and stuff, but I don't know. I feel like at this point, it's like I know too much about people that I can't even really enjoy this stuff the way that I used to. Like if you asked me 6 months ago, I just know too much about like what guys are going through in their personal lives, about their medical conditions and things like that. Like, I don't know. I can't do it.
You definitely sound like me after a while.
Right.
Where you're just done.
Yeah. I mean, a little bit, because that's the difference. Obviously there's a lot of differences between independent wrestling and WWE or the Fed or the main roster. The guys on the main roster work a style that is way safer than the style that works in the independent circuit, which is why you have that Randy Orton thing where it's like
dive
versus dive. Yeah, exactly. Because, Randy Orton doesn't have to dive. if he doesn't want to. But in the indie circuit, pretty much that's what everybody does. You know, like what's the next crazy dive that's going to take place? I mean, that's part of the reason. I mean, Myron Reed is fantastic. He's a great wrestler. If you haven't seen him yet, he's really great. But one of the things that sets him apart from the other young talent that's out there are some of the dives that he does, like the athleticism. He can do a complete like flip, like twist turn over the turnbuckle, which is higher than the ropes, mind
Right.
you, and still, you know, nail it every time. And he did it at AEW a couple of weeks ago with pinpoint precision. So, you know, I don't know. Like that's the difference between one of the differences between the independent circuit and the main roster at WWE is that guys are killing themselves over here. You know, like if a talent over on the main roster, like Braun Strowman, for example, doesn't matter how hot you are, if you have an injury, they're taking you out. They're making you get surgery. They're making you rehab that and not be on TV and not wrestle until it's, you know, until it's healed and you're cleared.
Let me ask you a question.
Nobody's doing that
really quick.
Yeah, nobody's doing that in the circuit though.
But let me ask you this: with all the people that you know and I know, how much pain do you feel yourself is in when you see friends of yours pushing it a little too far? Like, can you describe the pain for the listeners?
It's really bad. Depending on, you know, like how much I know, you know, about people's injuries and things like that. It's just, I learned really early that I had to have a stronger stomach for this stuff because, you know, I was becoming friends with people and finding out about their personal lives and things like that. And then I would go to shows and see them do crazy moves and jump off of like dislocated, torn ACLs and all sorts of punched with broken hands and things like that. And so I realized really quickly that if I was going to stay in this business or continue to cover wrestling, that I'd have to get a stronger stomach for this. And it never gets easy. It never gets easy. I was over at PW Revolver, I think a couple of weeks ago before I saw you at AAW the night before, and I saw Dave take a really bad bump against the railing. Mm-hmm. And I knew instantly, like, it was bad. Like, it was really, and he kept wrestling. He wrestled the rest of the match. He goes and gets an MRI the next day and then cancels the rest of his matches. So it's like, things like that like stick with me for a long time. I've told you guys about watching the Hooligans
Yes.
and watching, you know, Mason Cutter breaking his legs on the railing. That has stuck with me forever and ever and ever. So it never gets easy. It's always a punch to the gut. You know, when I see guys post things like a Kurt Stallion, for example, about, I just drove 15 hours and now I'm going to do a wrestling camp with Michael Elgin. Like, I just want to be like, can you just sleep? Can you just like take a nap for like 4 hours? I mean, it's not even just wrestlers at this point. I know how hard guys work in this business who just cover this business. Sean Ross Sapp over at Fightful.com, I know how hard that guy works. I've had conversations with him at 3 or 4 in the morning, and he's getting all this stuff done. And I'm like, can you just like take 3 hours and go to sleep? You know, and that's how this business is. Right. You know, and it's finding a balance of doing what you can to push yourself and promote yourself or promote your brand or whatever, and trying to have longevity. And a lot of the times, like, the guys choose making a big splash over having a long career.
So in keeping in that vein, what is something you would impart to a wrestler who's pushing it a little too much? And
I can't. This is the weird thing. This is the weird thing as a wrestling fan and as a person. For example, even if I knew somebody was really, really hurt and they got a big opportunity, it doesn't matter how close I am to you, how much I care about you, I'm still torn because I understand that these are big opportunities. Right. So, you know, if somebody's really hurt and they get a chance to do a tryout or whatever, I'm actually going to tell them as a wrestling fan, take it, because these chances don't come very often. They're once in a lifetime. I understand that you're hurt and maybe like the next the next blow to the head, you know, could mean brain damage or whatever. That's where being a wrestling fan overrides me being a human being, which is really messed up.
Well, no, I don't think it's messed up. I think it's more you're aware of the sacrifices these men and women are doing.
Right. Exactly.
You know, it's a balance. You know, you
Yeah.
could, for example, if let's say I was a wrestler or pro athlete,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, you care about me, and there's plenty of people who care about me, and I blew out my ACL,
Mm-hmm.
but I maybe, if let's say I'm playing baseball, in
Mm-hmm.
my contract, if I play 162 games,
Mm-hmm. You
I
get a big bonus.
a big bonus, and I
Yeah.
blow my knee out in game 159.
Mm-hmm.
You damn hell no, I ain't missing time. I
Right.
hate to sound like that guy, but
Yeah.
I understand it because my body is what's putting food on my table.
Right. Exactly.
So if I'm okay with it,
Yeah.
to put food on my table and to give my friends and family a better life,
Right.
then who am I to stop anybody? Who are you to stop anyone? All I was
Right.
asking, and I understand you're a little conflicted, all I was asking was, if you were in their shoes, what would you tell them? But I think you gave a pretty good breakdown as to what exactly would transpire within yourself and for them, for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think any wrestler, any professional wrestler that's been doing this for a good amount of time, that's had to make sacrifices and gotten hurt and wrestled through injuries and things like that, if it didn't matter how injured you were. I mean, for God's sake, Eddie Kingston can't feel his arms half the time. I mean, he looks pretty bad in these matches. And I'm really sorry that I have to say that because I love him and I feel really terrible, but he doesn't look great. You can tell he's injured. This is not a guy like hiding the pain. I mean, Dave,
Go
for
back
example,
to AAW.
Yeah.
When we saw him live in AAW, it just looked bad. I felt depressed for him.
Yeah, right. I mean, that, you know, and it's just like, but if he got a tryout or something with WWE, I'm not saying that's what like career path he wants or whatever, but if a big opportunity came up, he'd take it in a heartbeat. You know, and that's pretty much what every other wrestler would do. You don't enter this business trying to take it easy. You enter it pushing yourself, seeing how far you can go. Everybody's goal is to be at the top of the top. We've talked about this before. I mean, it might not necessarily be WWE for everybody, but it's something akin to that. You know, so maybe you're not like WWE, but maybe you want to be the Young Bucks. Like maybe you want to be Kenny Omega. So to get to that point, there's a lot of sacrifice, you know, and it's like the injuries, you forget the injuries really quickly when the opportunities come up. You know what I mean? So say, for example, Kurt Stallion, I know his big dream, his end goal is to wrestle in Japan. And it's like, you know, there are certain limiting factors there. I mean, one, you know, everybody says he needs to put on 30 pounds. You know, that's pretty much just like across the board. People that love him dearly, and there's a lot of people in this business that do, that's their number one criticism. It's like, you just got to put on weight, dude. Like you have to put on mass. Like there's no one's going to sign you looking like that, regardless of how talented he is. He also has some recreational things that he likes to do that he will not be able to do if he wrestles in Japan, which I've never actually asked him about before. So I don't know what he's going to do. If, you know,
see Matt Sydal.
Yeah, exactly. Or Matt Riddle. You know, like why couldn't you stay in the UFC, or why couldn't you stay too much drug testing? So, you know, stuff like that. And Kurt wrestles regularly with a lot of injuries. Specifically, the one lately has been his hand has been broken, and he keeps re-breaking it. Pretty much, it's just varying degrees of broken every time I see him wrestle. So it's either like huge like a grapefruit, or the swelling's gone down and then he ends up like re-breaking it again, because that is the thing with his body being as slender as it is. Like, this is such a weird thing to say, but I mean, you know, his bones hit the ground harder than someone else with more padding.
That makes sense.
You know, and so like, yeah, like he's hurt his back a couple times, and it's just,
didn't he hurt his shoulder at the last Glory Pro show?
Yeah, I mean, you know, so it's like you have to put on mass sometimes to just protect yourself. Yeah. You know, part of the physical therapy for a lot of these back issues is just strengthening the muscles around the injured bones. And so that's why you can have a pretty serious injury like like a bulging disc, where it's like making your nerves, making your arms and legs go numb. And the cure is still physical therapy, because there's not much you can do outside of surgery, other than really just strengthening the other muscles like that surround it. And so, and that's why it seems so simple to me. Like if Eddie Kingston just took like a couple weeks off, like I'd feel a lot better about it, but he's not going to do that. Because he's already doing the physical therapy, but you have to do everything just right. You have to take the time off. You have to do the physical therapy. You have to work on the specific muscles. I mean, these are all like normal things like a normal person would do if they got injured. But a wrestler has to make the sacrifices and be like, okay, well, I'll do the physical therapy, but I'll also wrestle death matches on the weekend. So I don't know, it doesn't get easy the farther it's gone. And I don't know.
Wait, let me ask you this. This is actually a fun question to ask you. Given that we're talking about injuries and pain tolerance, what is your level of pain tolerance?
I have no idea. And the thing is, like, being a wrestling fan, and everybody knows, because they try the moves on each other and stuff like that. Like, I want to test it out. I actually seriously do want to test it out. Like, I've joked, and it's not really a joke for me, but I want to take a chop from Big Mike.
Oh no.
Yeah, I really do. And a lot of my wrestler friends that have taken chops from Big Mike don't want me to do it. Part of it, and then this goes back to Kurt Stallion, is that like I don't have a lot of meat on my chest, so it's bone. It's gonna hurt, And I've actually had wrestlers, like, this is gonna sound weird, but like touch my chest area.
What?
And be like, yeah, like the bone, the upper
the bone.
area,
Yeah.
where their hand would land, and they're like, oh yeah, it's gonna destroy you. Like some guys are like, I could probably chop you out of the ring, like if I tried hard enough. And yet that's still like a weird thing that I want to experience as a wrestling fan. I mean, like, it's these little things. Like, you grow up watching wrestling, and all these little things mean something to you. Like when I was ring announcing for the very first time, leaning against the turnbuckles was the coolest thing in the world. Like, and it hit me as it was happening. I was like, holy shit, I'm leaning against turnbuckles in a ring. So it's like there's something to be said about getting chopped or getting to achieve some of these things on your wrestling bucket list.
Well, you did get chopped by
yes,
Liz.
I did get chopped by Liz, and she's still a wrestler in training. So that's not the equivalent of Big Mike, but like that's the wrestling fan in me wants to take a chop from one of the hardest choppers in the business, which for a lot of people that is Big Mike.
Man, if evidenced by Sean Orlean's chest after one of their matches, I can already tell how hard Big Mike chops. So
right, and then like poor Everett Connors.
Oh, poor Everett.
He took chops from David Starr, and it's like his chest immediately turned red. And I was just like, I didn't even think of David Starr as like a hard chopper, but he really did a number on Everett Connors.
Well, yeah, no, Everett told me the same thing. Like, we were talking about it after the event, and he said, yeah, it kind of got me in the throat a couple of times, but whatever. It looks worse than what it feels like.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what my pain tolerance is. I'm probably like, my pain tolerance is probably pretty low, and in my head, like, it's higher than I think it is. But I mean, I've talked to people who have done the training thing for like a day, and you'll know within like the first day whether you can still stick with this. You know what I mean? Like, you got to imagine, like, some of these guys have been doing this for 15 years. I mean, Eddie Kingston is one of those guys. And so it's like the type of injuries they've gone through their career, and they know their bodies, and so it's like, that's why you do have guys wrestling hurt, because they've been through worse. But I think sometimes the sad thing is that they don't realize how they're getting older, which sucks. Because specifically Mason Cutter from the Hooligans, he posted something on Instagram the other day of the scars from his legs, and talking about how he's had similar injuries, but this time around they didn't heal as quickly. And someone posted in the comments, it's like, dude, it's because you're older. Like, yeah, maybe you recovered from a torn ACL like super quick 6 years ago, But hey, now you're in your 30s, or hey, you're in your late 20s. These things don't heal as quickly. And so it's like, for a lot of these guys, it's coming to terms with the fact that they are getting older and maybe their time's running out. And so they do take the chances. You know, they do take the opportunities, because the reality really is these things won't come by again, because, you know, you're 35 years old.
Jeez.
Yeah, it sucks. Well, and I've said this to you before, and I know it shocked you when I told you, but like Kurt Stallion, for all the heat that he's getting and promising career, that guy's 28.
Yeah.
You know, like he's not 19. He's not Myron Reed. He's not Leo Rush. Like, all these guys are so young, and they really have like super bright futures ahead of them, because they have like a ton of years ahead of them. But yeah, I mean, you see this in sports. You know, what are people's like peak years? You see people getting signed to like big contracts, and they're like 34, and you know that they're probably only going to have like 2 years in them.
If that.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's really tough to reconcile all of this.
Well, as you reconcile it, I'm going to segue to something a little bit more fun, because I need a favor from you.
Yes.
Okay, and I put this up on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, or about a week ago. Since I can't make it to Glory Pro this weekend, I need a favor.
Mm.
You know how when you you ran to Jimmy Havoc down there, you made a video for Liz?
Yeah.
Can you get one from Shotzi for me, please?
I will try. Yeah.
Considering that I went all the way to San Francisco to see her at Hood Slam, you know, as Pizza Cat, and now I can't go see her in St. Louis.
I know.
You know, in her normal form.
Right.
So it's
exactly.
Like, can someone either pay, you know, do it now, PayPal you the money? Can you get a signed T-shirt at the very least from her?
Yes.
You know, just making it out to me.
I will do everything I can. Yeah. No, we will. I think it's really adorable that you want this, because, you know, some people gave Glory Pro and Mike some heat that they chose her as one of the participants in the first women's match for Glory Pro.
Why?
Even Papa Hales, our beloved Papa Hales, said something to me in passing that he would have thought that Glory Pro would have brought in a bigger name. Not to say that she's not talented. They just thought that they would bring in a bigger name, more high profile name. You know, and Mike has the connections, and everybody at Glory Pro has the connections to make that happen. But it speaks to what Glory Pro is trying to do, which is to grow talent, you know, young talent, people that aren't necessarily known. That's why you have David Starr versus Everett Connors. Like, you're not going to see that at PWG or Evolve or like Beyond, because Mike is specifically trying to build young talent.
Right. And there's enough, and I'm more than familiar with the cards of Glory Pro. There's more than enough quote unquote marquee talent at all these events where you can bring students up, or you can bring these up and comers, and it doesn't affect the product. I mean, look, Space Monkey's always there. Ethan Payne's been there the first two shows. Sammy was there last time. So you have enough chutzpah, you have enough juice, right? You know, to carry a card, but you also need, you know, up and covers, because who was he going to get? Honestly, he was going to get Tessa. He was going to get Rachel, Ellering. Yeah. And plus, it's a working arrangement with shoot, I forgot the name.
With Shimmer.
I thought it was Shine.
Oh yes, yeah. With Kevin Harvey. Yeah. Yeah, with
Kevin Harvey's group. So it's a working arrangement. I believe it's Shine. And where did you expect them to get? She's their champion. So if it's a working arrangement with this promotion, why wouldn't you bring their top woman in for the event, for the one shot?
Right. Yeah, I mean, people have to think about the long run. And I think this goes back to the quote unquote lull that we're experiencing, because if you look at the card for Glory Pro on Friday, they have Keith Lee and Kyle O'Reilly.
Yep.
And, you know, yet not many people are talking about it. I mean, I don't know, you know, like maybe we just blew our wad. There's too many like super matches and super indies and just too much stuff going on, that a great card with Kyle O'Reilly and Keith Lee is kind of getting ignored. I think Phoenix is also on that card. I should know this, but I don't. But
I believe Ray Phoenix is going up against Myron.
Right. That is going to be an unbelievable match. Oh my God. So yeah, I don't know.
I'm surprised that third row seats haven't been sold out yet.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And but yeah, at the same time, you're taking a break. You know, people have life to
Mhm.
go and live, and you're taking a break. If you had the choice, you wouldn't. It's just because of the way that your life is going right now. You have things to take care of, and so you do have to take a break from going to shows. And I'm trying to balance it out. I don't know how long I can keep it up. I think I posted it the other day. It's like trying to become a paralegal while also being a traveling independent wrestling fan, while also doing podcasting, is really starting to seem impossible.
Right.
Yeah. So it's,
And
I don't
I
know.
know, I understand completely. You and I are both going through this a similar thing where it's there's more important things that I hate to say it. There's more important things than wrestling going on right now in both of our lives that
Mm-hmm,
need our
mm-hmm,
immediate attention. So if anyone is upset, if everyone's mad that we're not going to be going to shows as much, I'm
mm-hmm.
sorry, but I'm going to say this really bluntly. You don't pay my bills. You don't. You're not.
Mm.
You know, if you have a problem with it, you don't pay my bills. I have to make sacrifices. So for me to pay my bills and buy my house and all this other good stuff that I want to do, I gotta take a 2 month respite, or at least not go every weekend like I used to. Like once in a blue
Mm-hmm.
moon, you know, if someone wants to meet me at a show and they want to say, "Hey, D, come out," fine. But no, I'm not planning for any shows after this weekend's House of Glory event. After
Mm-hmm.
that, taking a nap, wake me up when it's over, you know, and you and I can have these types of conversations over on Last Mark Standing. And that's if people really want to know what we talk about outside of independent wrestling, just tune in
Mm-hmm.
to Last Mark Standing, lastmarkstanding.com, on SoundCloud and iTunes. We are expanding the brand. For those that don't know, we are going to rebrand a little bit to venture outside of professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So we did the one with Aaron Hernandez, when he committed
Mm-hmm.
suicide. We've talked about CTE and concussions. We've talked about
Mm-hmm.
major life issues with psychology and sociology. And I think we're going to tap back into that because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of our audience likes it. And a lot of our audience
Mm-hmm.
wants to cover it and they thank us for it. So in the next maybe couple weeks, couple months, we're definitely going to be changing our style. But you can always
Mm-hmm.
find us at Last Mark Podcast. We will always meet up here for Indie Pop for all the New Age Insiders listeners. You
Mm-hmm.
guys have plenty of people to choose from at the NAI network. So even if we took a week off here or there, you won't miss us that much. And if you do,
Mm.
let us know. Tweet me at Dare to be Damien. Tweet Trina at the Marky Smark. And
Right.
and in keeping with the new format, I'm going to throw it out there now. I am taking
Yeah.
DMs for people who want to send me requests for before they were stars. So the
Mm-hmm.
caveat here is they have to currently be in the WWE.
Okay.
That is that they have to currently be there. So you need to give me people like, for instance, Tyler Black,
Mm-hmm.
Seth Rollins, versus El Generico, Sami Zayn, like something like that. They have to
Mm-hmm.
have their indie names. It has to be before they got signed,
Mm-hmm.
and I will give you what I think about not even just their performance or the match itself, just if there's any differences. Do they work a different style now? How different is their style then as compared to now? So those are the
Mm-hmm.
kind of things I'm going to be doing. So I'm probably going to do maybe 2 matches a show. I'm going to try to keep it to that level because I think a couple of weeks ago, I did one for Donovan Dijak. I remember people wanted me to give my 2 cents about him.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was JT Dunn. And I think Tim wanted me to give my 2 cents about that. So keeping in that vein, but now we're going to take it one step further, and it has to be people who are currently in the WWE. So if you want to send me John Moxley versus, I don't know, Drew Gulak before he became, Drew Gulak in 205 Live, something
Mm-hmm.
like that. Tweet me at Dare to be Damien. Hit my DMs with positive stuff. Let's keep the negative stuff down because the world in and of itself is kind of fucked up right now. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
pardon my language. And my heart goes out to everyone that's been affected by random acts of violence, by hatred,
Mm-hmm.
by just unsettling behavior that makes me weep for the state of this world. And that's what I'm going to leave you on my end with.
Mm.
Just try to be good to each other, man. That's the best way I can do
Right.
it. Any last words, Trina, for yourself?
I agree. Just be good to each other. There's enough bad stuff going on in the world that let's put some good into it whenever we can.
sort of like this show.
Yeah.
And as always, you can find us at patreon.com/lastmarkstanding for pretty much a lot of rambling and ranting on our Patreon only shows. The last one we did last week was kind of fun. Lastmarkstanding.com. I know people have told me the calendar's not updated. Life. That's all I'm going to say. Life.
Mm.
We love you all, and we'll see you next time. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.